Hello! I finally finished this large A4 Etchr Sketchbook. It was a bit of a struggle because the sizing went bad on the watercolour paper and the end of it is not very good. You can see how filthy the white cover has become, so I'm going to decorate the cover and then we'll do a flip through. Let's get into it, shall we? I'm so excited. First things first, I'm going to draw my design on the cover using a couple of coloured pencils. I was thinking an abstract checkerboard along with the suits of playing cards and a colour scheme of red, white and black. Red hearts and diamonds on black and white checks, and black clubs and spades on red and white checks. I've gone for a more whimsical Alice in Wonderland vibe here rather than making all of the checks just totally straight and boring. Oh, it looks like a total mess at the moment, but it's going to look much better once I paint it. But first up, I really need to cover this with some clear gesso. This Art Spectrum gesso is wonderful. It's so smooth and it's my absolute favourite. The canvas cover of this book is so porous, and last time I didn't use any gesso, it took so many layers of acrylic paints, but this time I've just put a little bit in my wet palette here. I'm going with that black, white and red theme. Oh look, it's a brand new tube of white acrylic paint. I just grabbed some tubes out of my cupboard. It's just cheap acrylic paint from different brands, nothing too fancy or expensive. I really love this brilliant red by Montmartre, if I can ever get that lid off. It's such a stunningly vibrant colour. I've used quite a lot of it, I'm probably going to have to get another tube soon. And here are all of my little brushes which fit conveniently into this Army Painter wet palette. And I've just got a jam jar of water. Any water container is fine for this project. So now I'm painting on a thick layer of the clear gesso. And the reason I used coloured pencil is because it doesn't smear with the gesso, whereas graphite pencil does. I've learned that the hard way. I left the cover to dry overnight, and it's now fully dry. I'm starting off painting in the black squares or checks because that was just much easier to see. I did consider starting with white, but I figured it would probably be really difficult to see once it had fully dried. I ended up just painting over the llama as well. And I'm so glad I put that gesso down. It made the other paints sit on top of it rather than absorbing into the fabric of the cover. That meant I used a lot less paint overall, although I did have to go over this black again because it is a pretty cheap paint. And it dried a little patchy, so I had to go over with another layer, and I think I need to get a better black paint in the future, but I've just got this one tube at the moment. How can I only have one tube of black acrylic paint? I don't know. I love this red colour though, it's so pretty, and I'm really glad I broke up the checks by having some black and then red in the middle and then going back to the black. I think the whole design's actually worked out really well. And really, it's difficult to go wrong with such a simple colour scheme of black, white and red. They always look so good together. It's such a classic colour combination. Going back to black, and it was only a matter of time before I made a mess of those check marks. I don't know how I did that, but I just painted some white over the top so I could remind myself which ones needed to be white, and of course I had to go over with several layers of white to get rid of that black. It was so annoying, and you could see there are a few pencil marks where I've got lines completely out of order and I've had to merge two squares together just to fix it up. I also got confused by that diamond in the top right corner thinking it was meant to be white when actually it's supposed to be red, but I did get there eventually, and for some reason I always seem to start painting on the right side of the book, which is really silly because I'm right-handed and I'm moving from right to left, so I got my hand in the wet paint multiple times. You'll see me flip the book a few times because I realised my mistake as I was working and I just flipped the book so it would be easier to paint the rest of it. I'm so dumb sometimes. There we go, that's much easier now. I'm painting from left to right. Even though the background is white, the white paint was much brighter because the canvas had gotten very grubby from constant use, dirt, smudges from my hand, and of course the inevitable cat hair which just sticks to this fabric like nobody's business. I had picked some of it off and then the rest I just painted over with a few layers. No one will know. The cat's hair is now immortalised in the book. You could see how patchy that black paint has gotten once it dried, so I went over most of the squares with another layer off the camera so you won't see that part. But otherwise it's starting to come together, and now I'm painting on the diamonds and hearts over the top of the black and white checks. I thought this turned out quite nice, although I was sitting here thinking it needs something else. I just wasn't quite happy with the outcome. as the suits weren't really standing out on top of the checks as much as I would have liked. I came up with a solution for this a little bit later, but I was just making sure I had thoroughly covered all of my scratchy pencil lines so nothing was showing through. This was a huge improvement. I worked on this front cover for hours, and that Army Painter wet palette was fabulous. My paint stayed wet for the whole time. I didn't have to worry about the acrylic paint drying really quickly, and I totally recommend getting a wet palette if you want to do something like this. They are absolutely brilliant at keeping acrylic and gouache paints wet for a long time. And if you put the lid on between painting sessions, it'll keep the paint wet for days, even weeks, which saves so much paint. And now I'm going over all of these little suits with a lovely gold pen. This is my favourite gold pen. It's a solvent-based one and very shiny. This made all of the suits stand out so much better from the background than before, and it really finished off the whole cover. I am so happy with how the front turned out. It looks so much more fun than a plain, boring old white cover. I decided I could not be bothered doing the whole design on the back as well, so instead I just drew one of each suit in a square formation with one black and one red on either line. I completely forgot to use the coloured pencils, and I'm using a graphite pencil, which is what I said not to do, so I took off most of it with an eraser, and now I'm painting on that gesso over the back. I put heaps on. I'm also using a wooden board behind the book, just so I don't get paint and gesso all over my desk. My idea was to paint the suits red and black, and then just the rest of the background in a white, because it's a back cover and no one's really going to look at it that much. But I actually really like the simplicity of the design, and it came out quite nice. I could have put this on the front, but I do like having a really busy front and a simple back. The whole concept worked out well enough because they are the same colours and design. I just don't have the checks in the background. I was far too lazy to do that. I really love this red colour. I know I said that before, but I will have to reiterate that. It's so bright and vibrant. It's the reddest red I have, I think, in my acrylic paints. The black is nowhere near as good as the red. It's a different brand and I don't even know what it is. It's just like some really basic black paint. But at least I got to use some of it up. That's always a bonus. I'm trying to use my art supplies and not buy more things until I've run out of something. Easier said than done sometimes, but I'm trying. The background looked so much better once I went over it with white paint as well. It got rid of all the little fluffs and scuff marks, making it look as if the book is in pristine condition. Yeah, right, it hasn't been like that for years. So, this Etchr Sketchbook. I bought this set when they first released them, and this was from the Kickstarter that they did. I think it was around 2018, 2019, something like that. And so these are the very first books that they ever released, I think. And sadly, the sizing on the watercolour paper has just not held up. It's been, 4 years, maybe 5 that I've had these books, and that seems a bit quick for sizing to go in paper. I mean, I know it does happen, but I would expect that maybe at 10 years, not at 5. So I am quite disappointed with the paper in the Etchr Sketchbooks. I don't know if this is because it was an early batch and maybe the paper has gotten better over time. I'd love to hear your experiences with the Etchr Sketchbook. Let me know in the comments if you've had one of the earlier ones and how has the paper held up for you, because for me it just started disintegrating probably in less than 5 years. I'd say maybe 2-3 years. It started happening in the first A4 book that I had in the pack, and then in the second one it went really quickly. So unfortunately I will not be buying at the Etchr Sketchbooks again unless someone can assure me the paper is better, because they come in packs of 3 if you buy them from Etchr, and they're just not going to last at that rate. So my next sketchbook is going to be a different one altogether. But I finished up this one with some more of that gold pen. I think it just made everything stand out and it brings the whole cover from front to back together. Any excuse to use shiny gold pen is a good one in my book. And now I'm going over everything with what looks like a white PVA glue. It's actually a matte varnish, and this will dry clear once it is fully dried. You can see a brief preview here, and then I did the same on the front cover. It just seals all the paint in and actually makes it more pleasant to touch. The acrylic paint on the canvas just feels really horrible, whereas this clear stuff makes everything a lot smoother. And I made sure to cover this thoroughly Oh yes, and I did label the sketchbook, Becky's Sketchbook, and the dates. Well, the years. I started it in 2022 and finished it in 2023. I think about 18 months all up. It just fits. So here is the finished cover. It looks a bit funny on the front. I don't think that matte stuff worked quite as well on the front as it did the back. The studio lights are making it look a bit streaky as well. I love how the back turned out. I should have just done this on the front cover as well. It's so simple and elegant. I really like it. But now I'm going to flip through the entire book and show you everything that's in it. So welcome to Becky's Sketchbook, 2022 to 2023 edition. You've probably seen a lot of what's in here because I've used this book primarily for my filming, but it's always fun to flip through and see how the entire book has come together. So opening this first page, I was too lazy to put anything on the inside cover, so I've just stuck in some scrapbook paper. It's actually worked out quite well, although that paint ran and I didn't even notice it until it had fully dried, so I've just left it there. I just went with the basic primary design on that cover. Then I've got a random rainbow explosion on that Etchr page, and then this is the title page, January the 5th, 2022 to August 30th, 2023. And this page spread is the annoying one that has the glued pages and they won't open properly. This is the first official page spread which lays flat. Two little Van Gogh watercolour sets. I changed the order of the paints around and I did a couple of little paintings with them on the right hand side. I really like how those two came out. That's one of my favourite pages. Next I've got this colourful page spread, and I think the two on the left hand side were from the Van Gogh paints as well, and then the right hand ones were little bookmark things that I'd made. I couldn't tell you which paints those were. Moving on to the Rembrandt watercolours, these are the tube paints, and I had some of those sparkly ones which I'd found randomly at a market. And here's the painting that I did with them. There are some sparkles on there, that's why I'm waving the book around to try and catch it in the light. I'm not going to list all of these videos in the description, but if you go through my back catalogue, you'll find a lot of these videos. Next up are the Artgraph Viaco Taylor Chalk things, Taylor shapes they actually are, which I found out later. Annoyingly, the painting on the right hand side has transferred itself onto the swatch page, which is why there are all those little brown marks everywhere. That's super annoying. And maybe I should have sprayed this with a watercolour fixative. I do have some, I just have never used it. I guess I'm going to try that in my next book. This page spread, I'd tried out these Pentel Aquash watercolour pastels and they didn't work out very well on that left hand side. This other side is another little set of Australian paints that I used. Jazz Art Byron watercolours. Those were pretty good actually, and they made up for the crappy pastels on the left hand side. Not one of the better pages in the book, but hey, it's a sketchbook, it doesn't matter too much, so I tell myself. This page spread is a lot better. I quite like having a combination of swatches and paintings on a single page. It's a really great way to try out new colours and see what they're going to behave like. Someone sent me some gouache and watercolours, so the chameleon and also this little lighthouse painting are with those watercolours. And gouaches. That was so generous of the viewer. Thank you again if you're still watching my channel. Then I did this little painting with M. Graham watercolours from a photo I took when I was in New Zealand last year. Beautiful autumn trees reflecting on the water. Next page. The left hand side is using Shinhan student watercolour paints, and the right hand side is a small set of Roman Schmoll Aquarius paints that I got. These few pages is during the time when my father had broken his hip and I was staying out at his place for about a month or so I didn't have very many supplies with me. I used his set of Sennelier watercolours to paint these two galaxy paintings. And they're pictures that were taken from the James Webb Telescope. I just thought they were fascinating and I had to paint them. It was so much fun, and I used some sparkly paints on that one too. But this is one of my absolute favourite page spreads in the book. Just doing paintings rather than reviewing actual paints. And this was during much needed downtime while I was caring for my father, who is so much better now, by the way. Thank goodness. I painted with the Gansai Tambi graphite colours, and I also compared them with the Boku Undo Esumi colours, which look almost identical, and the Ned Kelly is painted with the Gansai Tambis. I bought and reviewed Lindsay the Frugal Crafter's brushes and made a huge mess of that painting. The paint ran under the washi tape that I had on the paper. I think this is where the book was starting to break down. It's already happening and I'm only about halfway through. You can see how it's soaked through the other side at the top of the page. But now I'm going in with some super granulation sets. I swatched all three out, and then I've got the three paintings: Volcano, Desert and Shire. I'm not so sure about these. I think Desert is my favourite painting of the three there. And then I also bought the bonus haze set. I really love this one. It's my favourite out of all of those. And I really need to put all of the super granulation paints into a large palette. It's a job I've been meaning to do for ages and I still haven't done it, like a year later. Oh dear. A slightly more muted page here. I was using Schmincke Random Grey from 2022. I love that paint. It's so good. And then I bought a few extra colours for my Roman Schmoll palette. They worked out really well together as a limited palette painting. And now I've got the Daniel Smith mixing set. This is the split primary colours. I made a mixing chart with the different colours and also a couple of paintings on the right hand side. Moving on to this next page, I have no idea what the heck this is. I had this empty page in my book, and so I think I actually sat outside looking at my garden and painting random blob flowers. I didn't even know. This one is a Statue of Liberty painted with 3 supervision layering watercolours. I like that page much better. I don't mind the colours of the flowers. I think they're quite bright and vibrant, but the style doesn't really fit in with any of the rest of the book. Oh well, never mind. Let's just close that page and move on to this one. I had some more supervision sets that were sent to me, so I painted out 3 little pictures and I swatched all the colours on the left hand side. And now we go to my full M. Graham palette because I updated it with some new colours. I have so many blues, it's ridiculous, but I painted these penguins with a few of the colours. And that turned out pretty cute, so I'm happy with that. Next up is the Gansai Tambi Art Nouveau set, which I managed to get my hands on. I did do another painting on a separate piece of paper, but I also did one in my sketchbook. And that's a really lovely set of colours. Next up is a set of Paul Rubens watercolour paints. This is a really lovely set and I'm very glad they sent it to me. I went through this phase where I was being sent so many different paints from brands, which is why there are a lot of review pages here. I bought the Michael Harding watercolours though in a sale, and that's the fishy that I painted with them. I have these Rosa Gallery watercolours which I bought in Greece, and I painted some chooks. The paper was really dying around here. You could see that line at the top. That's from the sizing just going. And it looks really horrible. I hate it so much. Not even washi tape was going to stop it. But I was getting near the end of the book and I was really persevering trying to get through it. But the paint was leaking through the pages and yeah, I was just over it by this point. This is the last page spread that I filmed on camera, with Old Holland watercolours on the left and the Crema pigments on the right. I didn't even finish the puffin because the paper just did my head in and I gave up. No more watercolours in this book, so now I've gone on to a few little gouache paintings just to finish it up. These aliens were in a shopping centre. They were sculptures that were out during August, and so I painted them. They look so silly, especially on that background. But I do love this page. These are little gouache sketches that I did from my photos that I showed recently in a community post. And I also did some lettering practice from this wonderful book, which I bought off Amazon a few weeks ago. I found that Say It With Flowers in here, so I thought that would be perfect to put on here. It was a good way just to practice some writing, because I'm not very good at lettering and I could always do with some practice there. I'm just flipping through to find the other letters that I used because I wrote out Magnolia with these Gothic style letters. There was no G, so I had to guess that one in lowercase, but otherwise most of the letters were there. And yes, I am loving this book so far. I will definitely use that more in the future. And now for the last page spread in the book. I used gouache for both of these paintings. I did these ones very quickly because I wanted to finish the book, but the gouache actually sat really well on top of the paper, and this is a really great idea. If you have any paper that is no longer holding watercolour, use gouache over the top, although it did transfer over from one page to the other. Joy! And then I just wrote Finn on the last page because I was done. I just needed to finish this book. I blobbed on some gouache colours just to make it look slightly more interesting. I also stuck some scrapbook paper on this pocket and wrote the word pocket on there, and then we are totally finished. I am so glad to be done with this book. It has been such a pain in the butt lately, and I am really looking forward to starting a new one. Here's a tiny little sneak peek of the next book that I'm going to use, and you'll see that in an upcoming video. But thank you for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed seeing how the book came out. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it and click that subscribe button. And I've got a couple of other videos up here with some more sketchbooks that I've finished in the past. I'm always so proud to finish one. I'll see you in my next video. Swatch you later. And now it's going on the shelf, never to be talked about again. Next to my other Etchr Sketchbook. Bye!